Before the age of man, giant reptiles roamed the earth. On a small group of islands in a remote corner of the world, these creatures still exist. Did these fabled beasts inspire early map makers? For in the margins they would write, "Here be dragons." Indonesia spans more than 17,000 islands, from Southeast Asia to Australia. Although the East Indies have been explored and colonized for hundreds of years, there are still places where visitors are rare and where life moves to an ancient rhythm. Komodo National Park is part of a chain of islands in central Indonesia called the Lesser Sundas, or Nusa Tenggara Timur. These islands are mostly volcanic. Indeed, over 35% of the world's active volcanoes are found in Indonesia. In 1980, the Republic of Indonesia established Taman Nasional Komodo as one of the country's first 5 national parks. The park contains 3 main islands: Komodo, Rinja, and Padar. Unlike the rest of Indonesia, the Lesser Sunda Islands receive relatively little rainfall. Only 60 centimeters fall during the 4-month monsoon season. This dryness helps to explain the unusual mix of plants and animals that inhabit the islands. Dense mangroves provide a haven for the flying foxes, or black fruit bats. At dusk, they stir, preparing for their nightly flights to Komodo or to the far shores of other islands in search of fruit trees. Savanna grasslands blanket the island's hilly interiors. On Rinja, these grasslands are home to feral horses and water buffalo. As fresh water runs low late in the dry season, animals gather near the few springs. Here they can easily become victims of the island's most infamous inhabitants. The local people call them auras. Scientists refer to them as monitor lizards, but the world knows them as the Komodo Dragon. These are the world's largest lizards. They can weigh more than 100 kilograms and reach over 3 meters in length. There are an estimated 2,500 Komodo dragons living in the wild. Their habitat lies within a small area made up of Komodo National Park and Flores Island. Although they were the basis of legend and myth for hundreds of years, the Komodo dragon was unknown to the Western world until recent times. Rumors from local pearl divers inspired a Dutch military officer to explore the island and report the first sightings in 1912. Komodo dragons mate in July and August, and the eggs hatch 8 to 9 months later. Baby dragons are fearful of adult dragons, which can be cannibalistic. Until they're about 1 year old, baby dragons climb trees to avoid predators and to seek prey. As they reach maturity, however, dragons quickly ascend to the top of the food chain. Komodo dragons will consume an entire deer or water buffalo in a few hours. They can double their weight in a single meal, but eat an average of just once a month. Dragons use their tongues to detect carrion from great distances. They not only scavenge, but hunt, and can run very quickly over short distances. There are tales of Komodo dragons eating people, but few cases have been documented. However, on a small outcropping sits a marker dedicated to a Swiss tourist who disappeared on a solitary hike. His remains were never found. The straits that lie between the remote islands of Komodo National Park are treacherous. For many Indonesian people, the ocean is considered the underworld and is a source of demons. The goddess of the South Seas is responsible for the rapid tidal changes, whirlpools, upwellings, and downcurrents that plague the area. Native seafarers who mastered these infamous waters are known as the Bugis. At one time, the Bugis were notorious pirates. It is from them the term the boogeyman was born. Among the Bugis live the Manggarai and the Bajo. They are the descendants of subjects banished long ago to Dragon Island from Flores by the Sultan of Bima. They now earn a hard living from the sea. At one time, they lived exclusively on their boats and had no permanent home on this arid land. Today, they live in small fishing villages. On moonless nights, dozens of their bagans line the horizon, a floating city under the stars. Here they spend warm evenings waiting for the squid to rise to the light of their oil lamps. It is the sea that provides the livelihood for these traditional fishermen, just as it has for centuries. Indonesia has long been a destination for explorers and adventurers. The islands of Komodo National Park lie in a region named Wallacea, after one such explorer, Alfred Russel Wallace, an English naturalist. Wallace explored the Indonesian archipelago in the mid-1800s and spent years collecting insects and other specimens. Here he found a wealth of life. Wallace collected specimens unknown to the Western world. On one day alone, he discovered 45 new species. It was during his 8 years in Indonesia that Wallace observed that the islands form a zone where the plants and animals of Asia meet those from Australia. From Asia come a variety of species, including the Timor deer, or rusa, and the wild boar. From Australia come several interesting bird species, including the sulfur-crested cockatoo, the noisy friar bird, or philemon, and the mound-building megapode bird. Megapodes are small ground-dwelling birds. They scrape the earth for years, building huge mounds in which to lay their eggs. The Komodo dragons often use these mounds as incubators for their own eggs, after raiding the nests of the megapodes. Visitors are more common today than in the time of Wallace, but there are still areas to be explored and discoveries to be made. In 1991, the United Nations declared Komodo National Park a World Heritage Site, a place unique on Earth and one of irreplaceable natural value. Today's visitors have a vital role to play in determining the future of this region. In the long term, the park's survival depends on a sustainable local economy, an economy based on environmentally sensitive tourism, an economy that does not exploit the park's limited resources. The park rangers, or jaguanas, strive to protect the park for all of its values, including its precious marine preserves. Pearl diving, dynamite fishing, coral and fish poisoning threaten the fragile coral beds. Encouraging dive charters instead of these harmful activities will help protect these reefs. The jaguanas patrol the park, curtailing illegal activities and heightening environmental awareness among both local communities and visitors. There are few places where time moves at its own pace, unrushed by the demands of civilization. As the popularity of the park increases, visitors, local communities, and park managers must work together to preserve this unique world. It is the responsibility of all of us to help shelter this world heritage and to protect it both from and for ourselves.